Welcome to the Geek podcast, where Beej has been bitten by a radioactive spider. I'm Void, and I'm here with my co-host Beej.
Ow!
Okay.
Ow.
Today we want to talk a little bit more about Spider-Man because I played through the DLC and you're back into it, basically, right?
Yeah, pretty much Spider-Man in any way that I can, but yeah, I finally got to the point where I could stand putting mental energy into a video game again.
It took you a little bit, but you're back there. You're finally getting back into it.
It did, and it's just a fantastic game. And even Jennifer was saying, like, I'm amazed you're not playing Spider-Man right now a couple of times. And I'm like, yeah, me too. And so I finally decided to sit down and do it again. And just, man, the game is so good.
Yeah,
just
it's still like right up there for my games of the year. Like, it's going to be in the running for number one. I already know that. Depends on other things that come out. And I got to look back at the first half of the year because it always gets fuzzy by this point in the year. But it'll be up there somewhere in the top 5 for sure.
Yeah, there's no way it's not. Like, I do not regret getting the PS4 for this game even a little.
Wow,
like,
that's impressive.
This was a system seller for me. It was the reason I had picked up the PS4 when I did, and it's great. Like, just having it there for when I want to do something is awesome. Like, I don't even care that I haven't beaten it yet. I can constantly go in and just do what I want, and that's what I like about it.
Well, and so at this point, I've played every one of the open world games that I was excited for from the year. Okay. And I know that next episode, we're probably talking a little bit more about Fallout 76, so I won't go too in depth, but I've played enough to know that Spider-Man is my front runner. Like, it is the open world game that I've enjoyed the most and that I'm most excited about playing more of.
That's fantastic. Like, that makes me really happy from a fanboy perspective, but it also from the quality of where comic book games have come from. Have come over time. Like, they used to be kind of like movie games that if you had an X-Men game or a Spider-Man game or something, they were always fun, but they were never like top tier. These are not the games that are games of the year. These are not the things like X-Men for the Sega Genesis. It was never anybody's best game of the year, even though everybody I knew loved it because we loved the X-Men. Like, this is just a legit good game.
Like, they finally stopped tying them into movies and TV shows, and they don't have to be tie-in games anymore. And that's recent. Like, that's really recent if you look at the whole history of video games. And I think that is helping a lot with this kind of game, because if this had to be tied into a movie and timed with releases, like, you know what goes into development. And if you have a hard release date like that, I suspect that's a lot of why we got like shovelware games early in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know?
Oh, yeah, there's no way. I mean, like, and they were doing it really recently because there were Amazing Spider-Man 2 like movie tie-in games that they were still shoveling that stuff out. And I mean, I haven't played it. Maybe it's somewhat okay, but I guarantee it's not this.
Yeah, well, and so I finished this game and then I was like, I want the downloadable content. And I haven't had that feeling in, I don't even know, like, years and years. Like, I don't buy DLC. Usually I beat a game and then I move on with my life. And this is the first time in a long time, and I'm surprised that I got hooked on 2 of them this year, because Assassin's Creed was the same. Like, when I finally saw the ending, and I know I talked about that, like, the meta-narrative that they're telling, I need to know what happens next. So this happened 2 times within, like, 2 months, basically, and it hasn't happened to me in years where I cared about DLC at all.
And you didn't care about the Breath of the Wild DLC. That was one where you still haven't gone back and played it, have you?
No, I still don't own it.
And did you do Hitman DLC? Because I can't remember, because you were all in on that game when you discovered it, but I can't remember if you ever did any of the DLC for it.
Well, it was...
it was kind of all DLC, I guess. I mean,
yeah,
I don't
that's
really,
what I was gonna say,
because of the way that they released it, but I don't know if there was extra stuff after that despite the continuous updates. I didn't know if they did something like the Heist or Turf Wars or whatever for Spider-Man.
No, when I bought it, I bought just like the season, because it was a whole season pass or whatever, you know?
Okay.
But by the time I bought it, the whole thing was out already, because I came to it pretty late, I think. Like, nothing released after I bought it. And if it did, if it was extra or DLC, I didn't buy it. I just like paid for it once and that was it.
Okay. That's what I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember if there was extra stuff afterward.
Yeah. So this game, I went and like as soon as I beat it, I bought the season pass of whatever it's called. It's called, what is it? I have a note in here.
The city that never sleeps.
Yep. So it's a 3-part DLC pack where this is the first part. It's called the Heist. And then part 2 is Turf Wars, which is out soon. And then Silver Lining is part 3. And one of the reasons that I picked this up, which I think is different this year, is that it's coming out fast after the game. Like most DLC, even if you buy the season pass up front, or if you just wait for it to come out and you buy it like when it releases, I feel like they come out so far after the game that the game is like, you're so done with it by then, and you've moved on to like 10 other games, or your head just isn't in the right space and you don't remember how to play. And that was one of the reasons that I never really cared about DLC in the past. And this year, like, this game came out on September 7th, and this first DLC pack, or not the first pack, but the first chapter of these 3 came out on October 23rd. So it's like a month and a half. You know, it's like nothing. It's great. And then part 2 is out in November and part 3 is out in December. So it's like 3 months just back to back right after the game came out. And that is like the main reason that I picked up this pack of downloadable content. You know, I still have hype from the main game because it hasn't been very long, and I know that I'm like a content locust. I have developer friends that have told me that I just like mow through the content and then I move on to the next game, and they hate players like me, but that's how I play it and that's how I enjoy games. But so this launching not long after the main game launched is super, super appealing to me.
And that's something that I find with DLC too. It's like the new, with the new Xenoblade DLC that came out. I mean, that came out almost a year, I think, after the main game. And I beat it in May, excuse me. I beat it in May, and I still, as much as I love that game, and you can go back and listen to me rant about how wonderful it is in some of the other episodes, but I still haven't gone back to play it. That was one that I was mega excited for when they announced it, because I was just coming off of it. And if it had existed right then I would have bought it and played through it and spent so much time with it. But as it stands right now, I will get it, but it's not anywhere near my priority list. It's not anywhere near the top of it.
Yeah, it's just interesting that they are trying different approaches, and there's finally one that's clicking with me where I'm actually willing to spend money. Because there have been other things in the past where I'm like, oh yeah, that does look interesting, I should get back to that. And then I never do. Like, I don't actually put money into it, like Zelda. You know, that's a really good example. I want to play that. I mean, I'll probably pick up that like DLC pack sometime, like the next time I have a plane trip or something, and I just know I need, you know, to dive into the Switch for a while. But it's been out for a long time, and I just feel no compulsion. Like, I'm so far removed from that game, even though I loved it. So this part 1, I really liked it. Just to give a quick rundown, it's like Black Cat is back, and it's all about her and these mafia crime families that are coming back into. So the mafia crime families are coming back into power because Spider-Man took out Kingpin at the beginning of the main game. That's like that's first
tutorial level. Yeah. Like he is the first boss fight that you have in the tutorial. So I mean, that is spoiling 15 minutes of the game, maybe 20.
It's literally the first thing you do in the game. Yep. And so there are Black Cat missions in the main game, but the Black Cat isn't actually there. They're just missions related to her presence, but she's not back in town. So this game kicks off with her being back, basically. Okay. So it's all about like her and her relationship with Peter. And it's very interesting because it adds a complication to his relationship with MJ. And there's a lot. It
always has.
Yeah. And it's so well done because it's kind of like relationship DLC. I mean, it gives you a bunch of missions and stuff, but that's really what it's about in the end, is about like his relationship with Black Cat and how he doesn't really like hunt her down, even though she's a criminal, but they have kind of this like working together, not working together. I mean, if you know the comics, if you know the story, none of this is revolutionary, but I like the world that they've created for this game so much. And there's like 8 years of history before you get into the main game. You know, he's been Spider-Man for 8 years. Yep. So a lot of things they can just kind of write off as having happened already. So he already had a thing that happened with her, and they had a relationship, and now he's kind of in a relationship with Mary Jane again. And there's tension there because she's back. It was just so well done. And like, I want to see more personal stories like this in games that are superhero games or fantasy games or things like that. It doesn't have to be about saving the world. It can be these like personal stories about the characters.
And that's exactly what's interesting me lately. I mean, I talked last week about how the stories that I'm getting into on TV are the ones that are character driven. That Daredevil and all of those, it's about the relationships between the characters that are really drawing me in. And that's why I like this game. When I go back, I stop playing the action parts of this game. Like if I'm in the middle of swinging around the city and MJ calls or Aunt May calls or there's a podcast from Jonah coming on, then I either stop and perch myself on a rooftop to take that call.
That's interesting.
Or I'm swinging along so that I don't get distracted by something else while I'm doing it, because that's what I like. And so I don't want to see it's a shiny backpack over here, or try to take a picture of a landmark or something while I'm swinging and miss something that is very important to that relationship and that part of the game, because I can always do another I can always do another crime wave. I can always do another crime wave, but those are kind of set in when they happen.
And that's one of the reasons that I want to do a New Game Plus run of this game at some point. I think I'm going to wait until there's too much coming out right now, and I want to beat all of the DLC first. I kind of want 100% everything before I do that. But I really do have an intention to go back and replay New Game Plus in this, because I like the game so much. I want to experience the story again.
Yeah, and it's wonderful. And like you said, I mean, I'm happy to hear that the DLC, because I haven't started the Heist yet because I haven't finished the main game. And even though you can play them concurrently, the actual story takes place after the main game the main game.
Yeah, it picks up almost immediately after. It's not like seconds after, but it's pretty soon after the main game ends.
It's not The Last Jedi, but it's within.
No.
But I like the idea of that, but I just want to play it in order. But I like the idea that it's relationship based, that it's character based more than, like, I always go back to Clash in the Clouds with BioShock Infinite as being the worst kind of DLC, where it gave you an arena and leaderboards, like your scoring stuff. Like, that is not fun for me. That DLC, it's a fine game mode. There's nothing wrong with that mode, but that being the first DLC that came out was really off-putting to me, that I didn't mess with the other ones. And the others, the Return to Rapture, they're great. That I've played through those, but it took me a long time because of the bad taste that Clash in the Clouds put in my mouth.
Yeah, and this one, I mean, it picks up right where the story left off, and it's this fun, self-contained episode. It makes me excited for the next one, because, like, I want more story. I want to see what happens next. And it really gave me that feeling of almost like a comic book, or like a good couple episodes of TV, where, like, I want the next thing in a series, which is fitting, because since it's from, a comic book. But yeah, it's like, I guess to be continued, because I'm going to play the next one and I'm going to play the one after that. We won't make a whole episode out of each one, but this stuck out in my mind so much because it's not that I'm against DLC. It's just that I haven't picked up one in years and years because they haven't clicked with me. And it finally did. It's just so weird for me that happened.
And twice, like you said, with ACO, I don't even know if the other one was ACO as well, like ACO squared. That one happened, and this one too, like you said. It's just, maybe this is a trend that they actually are learning, that developers are learning how to tell these kinds of story.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that's funny is that I finished this DLC. I 100%ed this Spider-Man DLC literally 1 minute before Red Dead Redemption 2 came out. So, like,
I remember you sending me that message. Like, that made me so happy.
Yeah, I was trying to finish it so that I could start Red Dead and not have like two big games going concurrently, because I try not to do that these days. I just don't have the time for it. But yeah, it was 1 minute before it released, and then I flipped over and I played the first mission of Red Dead, and then I was like, it's late, I have to sleep, I'm an adult.
And you were off from work. You had a long weekend as well, so you were playing this, and then it was really this perfect storm of awesome for you, because you're like, oh, I'm relaxing, I don't have to go to work, I'm gonna play this video game I love. Literally 1 minute later, it's like, I get to continue playing this new video game that I love, maybe. And it's just, I just love the timing of that for you. Like, it really was just just serendipity that all of that lined up the way it did.
Yeah, it turns out when you like don't use PTO because your year's too busy, you suddenly end up with a lot at the end of the year and you have to use it anyway. Otherwise you lose it. I knew all of this, but it's like, oh yeah, now it's getting to the end of the year and I'm still super busy, but I have to use it or I lose it. So I'm making it work. Most of it gets dumped at the end of the year is what I'm going to do, and just have like a block of time off, which is weird. I haven't had a week off straight since last December. So
and it'll be super nice when you do.
Yeah, it'll be good. So I know that you were also wondering, like, is it a new world? And like, is there anything outside of Black Hat? And it's not. It's the same world.
Okay. No new zones or areas or anything like that? Or
no zones or areas. I'm trying to think anything else it builds on that I didn't talk about. There's a couple calls with Miles that are good that kind of like add to the after story. Okay. I don't want to spoil it for you because there's stuff that happens near the end with him. And then it's all based around Black Cat, but it's also around these mafia crime families. And another person that I'm going to forget the name of it. It's like Hammerhead or something. It was some guy that I had never heard of before, but I'm sure if you read all the comics, you know.
Yeah, it's Hammerhead. Yeah.
Okay. So he's not in it, but he's one of the driving forces behind it. So I'm sure that he will show up in part 2 or part 3.
Okay, that makes sense. He's one of the gangster characters in Spider-Man that runs with the crime families. That where he has a really hard head, like he headbutts people, and like you can't hurt his head.
Yeah, and that's what they're trying to. I had no response for that, which is why I froze up for a second.
I know.
But that's what they're playing into, is like the crime families and that whole piece of the lore, which I don't know very well, but it's kind of like Black Cat is trying to play all of the sides of the thing, and the crime families are rising to power because Kingpin is gone. That's kind of the base game that's going on there.
And one of the reasons I know more about it, I mean, I've read Spider-Man forever, but also that some of the comics I've been reading recently actually had Hammerhead in them and dealt with Black Cat and crime syndicates. So it was just kind of lining up for this to be interesting for me to actually be like, oh, okay, that's what they're doing now.
Yeah, but I mean, I fully recommend it. It also has a couple other side activities that it adds, but I wouldn't buy it for those. They're just kind of like a nice addition, basically.
Did you get the 3 suits? You said you 100%ed it. Like, are they... Okay, did they get new abilities and everything that come along with it?
No, it was a little disappointing. There are no new abilities, but there are 3 new suits. So, you know, you get something out of it. They said that there will be new suits with every one of these chapter packs or whatever. Cool. I don't actually know what they're called. Episodes, releases, chapters, something like that. Yeah, you know,
I don't know. I've heard it literally just called the Heist. I haven't seen it called anything in particular.
Yeah. So anyway, it's really good. I can completely recommend it, and I just had to talk about DLC a little bit because it was an interesting thought. It's probably for the main topic. Don't forget that you can send us questions. Our Thanksgiving episode is coming out soon. Our Q&A. That was not a great sentence, but I'm going to roll with it. There's only a couple weeks left to send them in, so send them. We've gotten a lot of good ones, but if you have a question that's, you know, burning a hole through your pocket, that's not how questions work.
That is the, like, wow. That's a powerful question. This is where my brain's
at. Work has been a lot lately, guys. But send your questions in. It's that time of year. And then Geeky Off for the week, as always, we have Patreon. Why don't you tell the nice people about Patreon?
We would really appreciate it if you would donate to Patreon. We have all sorts of cool stuff on there. We would love to be able to get to know you a little bit better. We're looking at different reward tiers and trying to figure out what you guys want, because we do this for you. And so we absolutely adore getting to know you and to have your support to keep us being able to do this. So if you want to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/geek2geekcast and see if there's something you can do. Appreciate it.
Sweet. On the network this week, Geek2Toot is always there. I'm not sure what they did because our episodes haven't been lining up super well, but it's always worth listening to. I always listen. And then Tea Time with Katie and Chelsea. I know that they had an episode this week about Paris that I haven't gotten to listen to yet, but I'm going to maybe later tonight after I edit. Definitely soon, but I'm excited for that one. With all that said, it's probably time for Weekly Geekery, where we share what we've been geeking out about this week. What do you got this week?
So I voted today. Like,
Good.
It's election day. We're recording this on election day for the midterm elections, and we're recording this before any of the results come in. So this is all, beforehand, all just day. And so the reason I bring this up is specifically because I want to say I hope that you all voted. Also, but not to get political, but there was only one national vote on mine for our particular House representative in my district. So all the rest of them were state level. Most of them were single unopposed candidates, and I didn't really like any of them. And so I don't like any vote not being used, I suppose is the way to put it. Like, I don't want what's the word? An abstention? Is that the word?
Oh, yeah, like if you abstain from a vote.
Yeah. I didn't want to abstain from these votes because I wanted a vote on record. I wanted a vote to oppose these people. And there was no one else to vote for. They ran unopposed. So I did what any America-loving person would do. I wrote in all of the Avengers names. I mean, I know that they'll do right by us. So I also wrote in the Friendly Neighborhood SpiderMan for one of them because, Peter does his best to keep his identity a secret, so I didn't want to do that to him. But Steve Rogers, Natasha Romanoff, all of them, they all got votes today because you know what? I like the Avengers better than I like the unopposed candidates on the local ballots.
That's awesome. Yeah, I voted weeks ago. I think I talked about that on air, didn't I?
You did.
Okay,
you
good.
Did.
I won't dive into it again, but we do early voting, and it's been fantastic. But yeah, I hope everybody voted today, or yesterday, as you're listening to this, when this comes out. I'm trying to think about how time works. Sorry. I told you, my brain is in a weird spot. We're in the middle of a lot of 2019 planning at work, and it's taking all of my mental energy.
I totally understand that. So the other thing I've done this week is actually tying directly into our topic. I've been reading a lot of Spider-Man comics, and so I've caught up on most of the stuff that's on Marvel Unlimited. And so I talked a while back about how they had this Road to Spider-Geddon event reading list that you could get on Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah.
And so it turns out I did some reading and I did actual research on it to figure out what was going on and when it was coming out. And it's already out that it's actually an event called Spider-Geddon. I was wrong. And it is called Spider-Geddon. And they started, I want to say last month, it may have started in September, with a comic series called Edge of Spider-Geddon. That's how they do these events in the Spider-Man comics, with an edge of that brings in, gives you stories of different characters because it's a multiverse story, so different versions of Spider characters. And so you get those, and now they've got a Spider-Geddon main story where there are going to be 4 issues. I think 5, and then they're tying in with all sorts of different Spider titles and launching a couple of new ones that are just mini series to go along with this, the same way they did with SpiderVerse. And I didn't want to wait until February for the actual comics to come out, for the trades to come out. So I did what I have not ever done, and I went onto the Marvel app and I bought all of the current Spider-Geddon comics, all the tie-ins, and just read them.
Wow.
I wanted to read this story so much that I just went and I bought all of the digital comics because our local comic shop didn't have them. I bought the ones they did have, but I bought the rest of them on digital. I guess I should say that. I didn't buy all of them on digital. I bought local whenever I could. And one of the things that ties into this is that because it's a multiverse story, Spider-Geddon number 0, it was kind of a limited edition precursor to the main story.
Yeah.
Even though time-wise it takes place during the story, but either way, you don't know that at the time. It brings PS4 Spidey into the comics continuity. That it is actually a story about the PS4 Spider-Man of Earth 1048, which is where he is, teaming up with the Superior Spider-Man, who's Doc Ock, and they take down a villain. They do their thing, and then he gets pulled into the Spider-Verse stuff. So it's really interesting to me that they immediately introduce this new Spider-Man in a new universe, and then pretty much literally immediately go in and bring him into the comics as well. So like all of this was planned, and it isn't one of those where it's like, oh well, you know, and the nerds and the canon and everything. It's like, I wonder if, you know, this doesn't really happen. I like this relationship with MJ, or I like this relationship with Doc Ock, and it's too bad they don't do that in the comics. And it's like, they might now. Like we might get more content on that story in a different medium now.
Yeah, that's super cool. I like that.
The art is great. Like Spider-Geddon Zero has some of the best comic art I've seen in a long time, because they did their best to make it look like the video game, where it's kind of a pseudo CGI kind of Alex Ross painting thing. It's like if you took Alex Ross paintings and tried to make it look like the PS4 Spider-Man game.
Interesting.
It's interesting. Like it's really cool. It's like cel-shaded Alex Ross. That's what it looks like. It's really neat, and I really liked it. There are minor spoilers to the PS4 game, because it actually happens after the main story of the PS4 game, but there are things that I did not, it's nothing I didn't expect. It's things that I knew was going to happen just based on how Spider-Man stories play out. And so it was, I'm not going to spoil any of that for you guys, but if you do read that and get into it, then just know that there are a couple of things you find out what happens. And, but Spider-Geddon is really good so far. I just sat buying them one after the other, because every issue it gave you what the next one was. So I looked it up on the app, and then just downloaded it and bought it. I think I was out like $25 or something like that when I got the receipt. It's not that bad. Good stuff. Like, I really like it, and it's made me super excited for the Into the SpiderVerse movie this fall, or this Christmas. Actually, it's not this fall. It comes out on Christmas. So I'm crazy excited for it now. Like, I've been reading Spider-Gwen as well, and she's in that and Marvel Rising, and I'm just really excited to have found comics that are good, because for so long, I know you and I have talked about how we have these good comics that we like with these storylines, and then we're done with that, and the next ones just aren't good, and we kind of fall away from this. Like, there's nothing else good to read right then, and so I'm really excited. I mean, there are good comic stories, don't get me wrong. There are always those out there that we want, but I've hit a series of winners here that have made me excited to read this stuff and keep going. Kind of like I was years ago when I actually fully collected and was like really engrossed in comics, like Rob, to like now it's like, oh yeah, this is why I love this stuff, because everything's tying together. So it really makes me super happy with finding all of those, and the Spider-Geddon stuff. Like, if y'all have read Into the Spider-Verse, just dig in and read Spider-Geddon. It is a direct sequel to it, that it's picking up where that story left off.
That's kind of where I left off with Spider-Man stuff. I gotta read it. I'm gonna wait a little bit until more of those issues are out on Marvel Unlimited, and then I will grab it.
You should just pick up the trades, because Marvel Unlimited, it won't be out. They won't even start until June or July of next year, but the trades all come out in January and February.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll keep an eye on it. I'll make a decision at some point. I'm not like most comic readers I know. I can wait. I'm not like, I don't need all the stories right now. I'm happy to wait until they're super cheap on a digital format that I can just rent for a month and then move on.
A lot of times I want to do the same thing. The reason I love Spider-Verse so much, that's the reason I did this. And so I know you liked it too. So that's why I say that. But normally I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to get Marvel Unlimited and read it. That's what I'm doing with like X-Men Blue. I'm finally trying it out. So, which is neat. It's the original 5 X-Men from the 60s. They got brought into modern day through time travel, and they're a new team that's working with Magneto as a mentor. It's super weird, and I don't know, but it's good. I like it so far.
Okay.
Yeah, weird stuff, but good stories that are being told, and that's really what I'm excited about. Like, I haven't had good stories like this in a while, so I'm glad to have found it, no matter what medium it is. But yeah, and Spider-Gwen, I've read all the Spider-Gwen stuff that's out there. I've read all the stuff, and I'm really disappointed in it. And I did realize that from this, there is one Spider-Gwen Funko Pop that I don't have. There is a Gwenom Funko Pop.
Why are you disappointed in it? I thought you loved Spider-Gwen.
Well, I'm disappointed that I didn't know about it. and that I don't have it, and I'm disappointed that there are no more Spider-Gwen comics to read. Like, I'm gonna have to go find out. Like, I think she's in part of Champions and stuff like that.
I thought you meant you're disappointed in the comics, but you're disappointed because there's not more for you to read.
Because there's not more. Like, I even went and looked up the Marvel Rising TV show to watch the episode that was free on YouTube, and it's based entirely around Spider-Gwen as well, but they call her Ghost Spider. Like, she gets weird names, but they can't really settle on a name. But they're really good. Like, I really like what they've done with that character, and when they continue on with the through the SpiderVerse, through the Spider-Geddon stuff, there are going to be some crazy things that are happening in all of the Spider books. So I'm super excited about that, because they're my favorites.
Yeah, I always liked this Spider-Gwen series too. It's a really good run of it.
They actually finished it. Did you know that it is over? They stopped it. Like, it was not a canceled, like, they told that story and was done.
No, I mean, I knew that they were working towards it, I think. I don't know if I ever finished it.
They did. They finished it. On Marvel Unlimited. All the ones that are there, that is the series of Spider-Gwen, and then they're moving on. They just launched a new one and everything, but called Ghost Spider to go in with everything else. But it is not a continuation of that previous story. It moves forward in time a bit, but all the stuff was wrapped up. Like, it's neat. Cool. They don't do that very often.
No, not very often. I did a bunch of stuff this week. I read a book while I was doing other games. I really listened to a book. I didn't read it. But Head On by Scalzi, which you mentioned the other week, or maybe months ago at this point. I don't know. I add things to my reading list, and when I get to them, I get to them. But Head On is a sequel to... I'm blanking. What's it called, Beej?
Oh, no. Lock-In.
Lock-In, thank you. And this is his like mystery investigation series, and the world is really cool, and I like Scalzi, which is why I read it. I'm not a huge fan of mystery or like procedural investigation, and the main character in it is like an FBI agent. The interesting part about the world is more the setting, because there's all these people who have this, it's like called like a lock-in syndrome. It has an actual name in the world, but it's where
Hayden's.
Hayden's, thanks. And they basically are like, they can't do anything with their body, but their mind is still fully active. So it's a world where technology advanced enough that they can like basically take over remote control of robot bodies and steer those around and still live a normal life, essentially. And it's fascinating. It's a really fascinating world. This book in particular was just okay to me, because again, I'm not a huge fan of mystery and investigation, but I like Scalzi, I like the world, I like what he's telling. So I mean, I would still recommend reading the first one if you're interested in Lock-In.
Absolutely.
If you like Lock-In, you'll like Head On, I guess is what I can say about it.
That's good enough for me. That the worst thing is when you like the first one in a series enough and then they drop the ball on the sequel. And Scalzi doesn't do that often. It's happened in the past, so I'm glad to hear that this one's not one of them.
No, so that was good. My family surprised me with a new monitor for my computer, which I've been eyeing different monitors for like literally years now, but mine was such a workhorse, and like I buy Asus monitors for my PC because they don't die, which is great. It's literally like the monitor that I've had on my main gaming PC is the second monitor that I've ever owned. Like, I haven't needed any more than that. So I've had a 22-inch Asus that's like, I don't even know how old. You know, my first monitor was a 4x3 Dell monitor that came with my very first Dell computer, and then this was the second one, the first time that I actually made a computer.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I was behind the times, which is why I'd been eyeing it, but like I could never justify it because my monitor worked fine. So my family surprised me, my wife and my brother and my parents, like they all surprised me, and they got me a 27-inch 144 hertz monitor, which is fantastic, and I love it. Yep. So I've been playing a little bit of a bunch of PC games just to see how they look, and I'm always like, wow, okay, like this is what I've been missing. So that's great. And then one of the games that I kind of like dipped into a little bit was Overwatch, which was kind of good timing because BlizzCon just happened and they released another Blizzard, or not Blizzard cinematic, but an Overwatch cinematic called Reunion. Have you watched this one yet?
I haven't watched it. It's the one with McCree, right?
Yeah. It's the one with McCree, and it introduces a new character called Ash. So they also announced a character at BlizzCon. But it's good. I mean, They're always good. Like Blizzard is just so good at CG cinematic videos, and I always want more, and I just want them to make a feature film in that style eventually.
I would not put it past them to actually make an Overwatch web series that works like traditional television. I really don't put that past them if they could figure out a way to truly monetize it.
Yeah, I mean, I would watch it if it didn't have ads. Like, I would definitely watch it. So that's kind of, I've just been playing around with PC stuff, and that's where I've been trying the Fallout 76 beta, but we'll talk about that a little bit more next week. I also got back into Pokemon Go by accident.
Really?
Which is weird. Like, I didn't expect myself to, but my kids wanted to play it again, and then when my wife and I, like, booted it up and updated it and logged everything back in, it's been updated. I mean, I know it's been updating, right? It's like a live service. So I knew that they were adding Pokemon, and I knew that sometime in the future they were going to add trading and like battles that were a little bit closer to traditional battles and friends and like sharing gifts, and you can send gifts to people. All of that's in the game. Like, I just missed the announcements that they said, oh yeah, it's live. Like, I knew it was coming, but apparently that was in the past now, and it just flew by me. So
like, I think I've missed the battles. That I didn't realize that you had Pokemon battles now. I knew about the rest of it, but I haven't actually seen or heard anything about being able to battle Pokemon.
It's still not what you're thinking. It's just, it's a little bit more where they like have moves, and different Pokemon of the same type can have different moves, and you can like use them, but it's not traditional battling the way that you're thinking.
Okay.
No. But it's a step in the right direction, and mostly I got back into it because my kids were interested, but also I was kind of prepping for Pokemon Let's Go. And I was like, oh, I got to log back into my account on my new phone and see where all my Pokemon are at, because you can transfer Pokemon from Go into Let's Go. And that's where I actually care about it, because that has real battling in it.
Yeah, that one I was really interested in for a little bit, because I did the same thing to get ready for Let's Go. And then with just where my mind has been lately, I've kind of just pushed that one aside. I will pick up Let's Go eventually, because I want to get Let's Go Eevee. And that's just been, I just kind of stopped playing Pokemon Go again. Like, it just drifted away. It wasn't even a conscious thing. It's like, I didn't bother logging in today. I'm walking down to the stop sign.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of getting excited for Pokemon Let's Go. I mean, I knew I was going to buy it because my kids.
Right.
But the closer we get, the more I look at it, and the more I'm like, this is actually kind of a nice happy medium, because there's no grinding in the game. Like, all of the Pokemon encounters, you just throw a Pokeball at them like you would in Pokemon Go. And then when you get to the battles that actually matter against other trainers or against gym leaders or whatever, those are the ones where you actually do a full traditional battle. And I'm kind of at the point now where I'm like, that might actually be a really good happy medium. And it's also a remake of the very original game that I played that got me hooked on the series. It's
Yellow, isn't it?
Well,
that they're redoing?
I mean, I guess technically, but Yellow is a remake of Red, and Red was my first Pokemon game. So there's that nostalgia aspect to it too. So I'm getting psyched. But because of that, my left Joy-Con, I've had that left Joy-Con issue. Do you know about it? Hang on, I should back up. Do you know about the left Joy-Con issue?
No.
Okay, so on the original Nintendo Switches that released, and the first set of Joy-Cons that were like released alongside the system, which is what I own, a lot of them have issues where the left Joy-Con will disconnect if you get more than like a couple feet away from the console.
Oh yeah. I did hear about that one. Okay, yeah, you're yes. Okay,
so I have that on both of my sets of Joy-Con. I have 4 Joy-Con total, 2 sets of 2 each.
Right.
So that if there's ever a 4-player game that's Joy-Con only, I can do it. That was kind of what I bought them for. And both of my left Joy-Cons were having this issue. So the options were either, well, I looked at sending it into Nintendo, and I could have done that if it was within the first year of owning my Switch, but I totally missed the mark there because I was just putting it off because I was never playing the Joy-Cons. I was either playing handheld mode or I was playing on the Pro controller, right?
Okay.
So it didn't become an issue until very recently when we got Mario Party or Super Mario Party for the Switch, and my kids were playing it a lot, and they're like, why do these keep disconnecting? And I was like, oh yeah, that's a thing. So I told them, I was like, just use the right one from each set, and that's what they had been doing. But with Pokemon Let's Go, I want one of each because I want to play multiplayer with my kids. And so I looked into, I could either buy replacements or I could try to fix it myself. So I found a video that shows you how to fix it yourself. And I was like, okay, how much are the parts? And it was like $15 worth. I was like, let's try it. It's easier than buying new Joy-Con for like $70, right?
Yeah, they're crazy expensive.
Yeah. So that's what I did, and I fixed it, and it was awesome. So it was ordering a couple screwdrivers off Amazon that came in a set, and it basically said like, this is for Nintendo systems without saying this is for Nintendo systems for liability reasons, but I can read between the lines. And then I just needed a little bit of conductive foam. So you open it up and you have to open it all the way up and take like basically all the pieces out. And then there's one spot in the left Joy-Con that you just have to put a little bit of like conductive foam and then assemble the whole thing back together, and then it works.
That's it, huh?
That's it. Yeah, it's just like, I'm assuming it just kind of extends the range of whatever antenna is touching that point, and that's all that it needs.
Oh, okay.
You know, because they're so small. But yeah, that's all. And now they both work great. So I fixed them. It was a fun little DIY project.
I'm actually kind of amazed that when you went and did that you didn't do what I know Capsule J did and completely replace the outer shell of them with completely different bodies, that you can do a lot of customizations on it. And I know his was specifically to get one side of it, instead of having the disconnected D-pad on it and buttons, that you can get an actual cross pad.
I almost never actually use the D-pad in games. It's very rare for me, and I like what they have done because it lets you use the controller a bunch of different ways, and my kids use the controller all the different ways, so that wouldn't work for me.
Yeah, I mean, we do the same thing, but I didn't know if that would be something that you would want to take over.
No,
take under rather.
The ones that I really like are the neon blue ones that I bought. They didn't come stock with my console. I have like a set of the gray ones that came stock, and then I bought a set of neon blue ones. So I don't have the red and the blue. That's like the stereotypical what you see. I have two of the neon blue, and I really like that. So I have no reason to change them out. I'm happy with them.
Makes sense. I just have I have gray and then a red and blue set. I don't have the multicolored or the solid color all together other than gray.
Well, I started eyeing up colors, and I was like, I might do something different. But then once I figured out I could fix it for cheap, I was like, let's try this first because I'm happy with them. Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of my week. That's probably it for tonight because we're doing a double recording. So we're going to record right after this, and then you'll hear it a week from now. But you can write to us with comments, suggestions, or feedback. Our email address is geek2geekcast@gmail.com, or reach us on Twitter @geek2geekcast. We also have longer discussion threads on the subreddit at reddit.com/r/geek2geekcast.
And we also have great discussions on Slack and Discord, and you can go to discord.geek2geekcast.com or slack.geek2geekcast.com, and you can hang out with us and talk and do whatever. And we also are a part of a podcast network like we mentioned earlier, so go to geek2geekcast.com and see all of our shows.
I blog at agreenmushroom.com, and you can find me at grnmushroom. That's green mushroom without the E's on Twitter.
And I'm on Twitter as @Professor Beej. That's Beej with 2 E's, and I blog at geekfitness.net.
We've been Void and Beej with your Geek to Geek podcast. That'll do it for this week. See you next week, geeks.
Maybe I got powers from that bite.
Hi everyone, I'm Katie.
And I'm Chelsea, and we are the hosts of Tea Time with Katie and Chelsea. We are two best friends who love pop culture and talking about pretty much whatever we want. Katie!
Yes?
Stop thinking about Zac Efron and tell our future listeners what some of our latest episodes have been about.
Well, we've talked about Zac Efron.
No, get it together, Katie.
Fine. We've talked about fan fiction, classical literature adaptations, favorite TV couples, and so much more. So grab your cup of tea or whatever your drink of choice is and download our podcast today.
Hi, my name is Joe Hogan, and I'm a geek. And if you're currently listening to this, there's a good chance you're a geek too. So check out my podcast, Geektitude. Each week, I talk with somebody about their geek aptitude. Sometimes I talk to people in a geeky profession. Sometimes it's someone doing something really cool with their geekiness. Often it's another geeky podcaster. But it's always someone who wants to share their inner geek. So join me each week as we come together to geek out about all the geeky stuff we love. And remember, this week, keep it geek.